From the front lines of the revolution to the heart of the Hill City, the Morningline is Talking 250. We're introducing you to the people who are bringing America 250 and Lynchburg 250 to life. Talking 250 is sponsored by Coleman Adams Construction, your sign of quality since 1971.
We're talking a lot of America's birthday celebration events here on the program. And if you go to va250.org /Lynchburg, you can see events that are going on in the area. And I saw one that looks really fascinating, an evening with the Smithsonian in Lynchburg. And this is a panel discussion, and it's going on at Randolph College. So we thought we would focus on that in this episode of Talking 250. So joining us now is Nancy Pasternak. They're joining us by phone. Nancy is a volunteer with the Smithsonian. She's involved. She's a Lynchburg native with long ties to Randolph College, where this event is happening. Nancy, hello.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and then Andy Mink is with us on the phone as well. And Andy is the Smithsonian's Director of Rural Initiatives, and he's the one who will be moderating the conversation with the Smithsonian experts at tomorrow's event at Randolph College. So Andy, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Nancy, let's start with you and tell us about your connections to Lynchburg and Randolph College and the Smithsonian, how all that works together, and how you happen to bring this event to Randolph College.
Okay, great. I am a Lynchburg native, graduate of Randolph-Macon Women's College, and recently joined the Board of Trustees. So have had a lot of time at Randolph and at Lynchburg, and currently live in Alexandria, Virginia, where I became involved with the Smithsonian. So as a volunteer leader with them, I am part of the D.C. Regional Council, and we have the opportunity to connect the Smithsonian to communities outside of D.C. and really learn about the broad scope of the Smithsonian beyond the museums on the National Mall. So as we were planning ways to bring the Smithsonian further from D.C. and into the community, we thought it would be a great opportunity to host an event in Lynchburg. And Randolph College just seemed like the perfect location. There's a lot of synergies between both institutions to include their how much they value learning and also how they want to share knowledge with the broader community. So we are excited that it has all come together and are looking forward to tomorrow night's event.
Yeah, it sounds like a great event, an evening with the Smithsonian. And Andy, let's talk to you. You're the Director of Rural Initiatives, so kind of the community outreach, if you will, right? Tell us about this program that the Smithsonian is presenting at Randolph tomorrow.
Yes, thank you. I suspect that some of your listeners, your audience, if they're driving in or they're listening at home, may have tuned their dial a little tighter this morning with this idea that the Smithsonian is in Lynchburg versus in Washington, D.C. And I think really at the heart of the Rural Initiative, which I was hired to conceive and operationalize 3 years ago. So this is a brand new program. I think really at the heart of this work is to reimagine the Smithsonian as not just a destination that you have to drive up 29 and take the traffic and get to D.C. to visit, but rather a public service that can be available to really any community of any size all across the country. Critical, the most essential part of this work for me is to have strong relationships with trusted allies and advocates in those communities. And so Randolph College certainly has been, such an important institution to the Lynchburg community. Nancy and her friend and colleague Grant Gilmer have been such wonderful advocates for this work. But it's really working through their advocacy that allows us to then come in hat in hand to share the good work that we're doing with the Lynchburg community.
What a great program. And so tell us what you have planned for tomorrow's presentation.
I think probably the second most essential part of this work is to really identify the priorities and the interests of the local community. And I know we're going to talk a lot about America 250, which, by the way, not to bury the lead, is one of those priorities. But we also want to focus on the ways that we can support educators, cultural organizations, and the community at large. And so tomorrow night, we're going to be focused pretty explicitly on the ways in which Smithsonian science is reaching schools and communities across the country. We're going to talk quite a bit tomorrow night about our work in species conservation. We've got a great, fascinating new initiative called STARS, S-T-A-R-S, that places telescopes in rural schools. And we're going to be doing a lot of discussion around the ways that we can support science education.
We're speaking with Andy Mink. He's the Director of Rural Initiatives for the Smithsonian. He's moderating the conversation tomorrow at Randolph College. And then Nancy Pasternak is a volunteer leader with the Smithsonian on the Board of Trustees for Randolph College and helped bring this event to Lynchburg. And so, Andy, you mentioned this is all part of, it's 250th is huge for the Smithsonian. What are you all doing for the birthday celebration?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm old enough to remember the bicentennial very clearly. The red paper mache streamers on your monkey bar handlebar bikes and the ways that we celebrated at school. The semi-cinquentennial is a big deal, and the Smithsonian has been working, really preparing probably for 3 years for this year. We've got a lot of wonderful events planned that includes some events that are in Washington at the Smithsonian, but certainly lots of things, lots of engagement that extends well beyond the D.C. area. For example, we're taking our annual Folklife Festival nationwide, and we're partnering with more than 40 local regional festivals across the country. If you do come to Washington, however, you can also start to see that this isn't just a national story. This is a national mosaic with local threads that tie into it, and that includes Lynchburg. For example, Lynchburg's own Chauncey Spencer, who's a pioneering African-American aviator, will be represented in the newly renovated National Air and Space Museum. So I think our goal is to not just see this as a year, as a birth date, but rather as a jumping off point, a match strike of the ways in which we can celebrate the American identity moving forward.
Just out of curiosity for that one, will that be at Dulles or will that be in D.C., the Chauncey Spencer?
That'll be in the D.C. Museum. Thank you for clarifying. And, it's funny. I often share with people that the Smithsonian has something like 175 million objects, but only 1% are on display at any given time. In this case, we're very intentionally curating items and objects that tell local stories that have contributed to, in some form or fashion, the amazing story of the last 250 years.
I'm putting you on the spot. What's the most popular item?
Depends how you define popular.
Okay.
Certainly, if I find myself walking from my office into natural history, the Hope Diamond has lines around the corner. The ruby slippers are, of course, what people often come to see in a very nostalgic and kind of 20th century culture icon. But I have to think, I'm a native Virginian myself. I currently live in Durham, North Carolina, just south of you. But I personally am drawn constantly to a very small, very nondescript, almost briefcase-sized piece of wood that actually was a traveling desk, and in fact, the desk that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence on. And what better way to tell the story of America than through an object that's so humble but has such power in our national story?
Andy, that's it's great what you're doing, taking the Smithsonian out into the communities, and you'll be at Randolph College, Smith Memorial Hall. Nancy, can people still register for this event?
They certainly can. We hope they'll join us tomorrow afternoon. The program starts at 4 o'clock. The registration site is s.si.edu// Lynchburg event.
And the way I found it was va250.org/Lynchburg. So when you're looking for Lynchburg related 250th events, this one pops up and folks can find out. And then it's the link to the registration as well. The evening with the Smithsonian. It's actually a late afternoon with the Smithsonian. Learn how the Smithsonian is exploring the stars, saving species, and educating the next generation. And we should note that it's all very science focused. This is kicking off Sci-Fest at Randolph College, which we're going to be talking about next week on the program. So Nancy Pasternak and Andy Mink, thank you both so much for joining us to talk about this event tomorrow. And we hope to talk to you again very soon, okay?
Thank you. Hope
very
to
much
see you
for
tomorrow
having
night.
us.
And again, va250.org/Lynchburg, events that are coming up in association with the local celebration and participation in America's birthday festivities. And it's right there front and center if you'd like to go to this event about the evening with the Smithsonian at Randolph College.
Talking 250 is sponsored by Coleman Adams Construction, your sign of quality since 1971. Celebrating 250 years of American spirit and over 50 years of building Lynchburg. Coleman-Adams.com.